Now everyone, before we get into today's video, just wanted to give you another heads up. I have a new podcast out called Creepscast, and basically is just a compilation of weekly videos posted on the channel, available on podcast format. If you guys are interested in that and want to listen to creepypastas on the go check it out. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and whatever else you get broadcast. So if you're interested, and go take a look at it, links are in the description below. And with that, I hope you all enjoy today's story. We lock our doors whenever there's a boneless tide, written by JTV 685. It's a force of nature, like quicksand. You can't reason or argue with it. All you can do is barricade your home and stay indoors. Us islanders and know when it's coming. We recognize the signs now and again, and outside comes to visit and brushes off the warnings, and they think we're all simpletons or in some sort of crazy calls. When I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock, a rich man from the mainland laughed in my mom's face when she told him the boneless was on its way. Mom said half the island warned him to stay inside, but he didn't listen about how he was going to leave his bedroom window open that night, acting all smug like he was probably 3 times a day. I dreamed of living, of seeing the world. But Mom got sick and someone had to take care of her. So I quit school. Next thing I knew, I was grown and married to another islander, a fisherman. Fast forward a few years, married life didn't turn out I had envisioned. Unfortunately, Mom had a very... It's hardly surprising that she was married to a fisherman for 20 years, but unfortunately it meant anytime I tried to talk with her about my problems, she took my husband's side. No, he's turned on the bolts all day, working hard, she would say. I'm sure he doesn't mean it, he's just stressed. I had the same problem with your father. Things will get better soon. Just wait and see you. And when I would turn up on our doorstep with a busted lip or bruised neck, she would brush it off. Oh, the storms took a turn for the worst. I'm sure it's tough for him out on the waves. I'm sure his mood will pick up when the weather dies. Go down sitting on the waves. That's how we know. The boldness was due for a visit. That midday I went down to High Street, all the merchants. I wanted to close up early and get home safe, but the shoppers were desperately trying to secure some last-minute provisions. I wandered from store to store, fighting my way through the crowd, picking up the essentials. At the pharmacy, I asked the cashier for some sleeping pills and told him that they were for my mom. She always had trouble sleeping when baldness is here. Poor thing. Play. He rang them up. Your best. Rush home and get locked up as soon as possible, and it won't be long. Now I will, and give your husband my regards. This time of year there's nothing out of sea but choppy waters and dangerous winds. Lord knows he needs a decent meal in a warm bed. At the end of the day I brush my hair back and exposing me black eye. My husband gave me for talking back last night for a fraction of a second. A flicker of concern flashed across the pharmacist's face, and then he looked away and started to restock in the shelves. I resisted the urge to laugh, as if anyone would ever dare to speak a word against the fisherman. We said our goodbyes, and then I started home along the way. As I walked along the coastal path, I stopped to watch the ocean waves above the surf, rainbow-colored coals at Twisted and Toyota, and I stood there in a translate state, contemplating when I was about to do an out of the man and gave me a nudge in the shoulder. Yeah, I hear the screamed. It's best not to hang about. He said there's not much time left, get home quickly. Yet I said yes, thank you. Cobblestone streets screaming at people to get indoors, and 2 of them are not broke up a gathering of teenagers and shoot them off. I entered my house and made sure it was probably secured and then cleaned it from top to bottom. And when everything was ready yet I went into the bathroom and practiced my smile. It looked ingenuine, although that was nothing new and I didn't think my husband would notice or care. "Would you like a glass of whiskey?" And I said to my reflection, and my voice sounded high and peculiar. I cleared my throat. "Honey, why don't you have a glass of whiskey?" I heard someone say that there had been some choppy waters lately and I thought you might appreciate a little reward for all your hard work. "I'm much better." I waited for my husband, glancing at the clock every morning. I was probably secured. An experience had told me it was best to wait for him to get settled before I say anything. And he sat in the armchair by the fireplace and kicked off his boots. "Tired?" I asked. "Of course I'm tired." "Dinner house," God sound, with some potatoes and peas. He had a newspaper in front of his face. "Fine, just try not to burn at this time." And I took the steps down to the cellar and flicked on the light switch. Pressed against the stone wall was the freezer at the far end of the room, where the double doors that opened under the street held together by a metal chain and padlock, the key to which hung from a nail on, and got everything ready and shoved it in the oven. And then I poured my husband a glass of whiskey, ground up 3 sleeping pills and mixed them in with his drink. I brought it into him. He turned the paper downward and raised an eyebrow. "I heard someone down at the market talking about I thought you might appreciate total reward for all your hard work." He left at the glass down to 101 and then snapped his fingers for another. For a while I started back and forth between the kitchen and the dining room. Lights and a fifth once a dinner was ready, yet I set 2 plates and I lit a few candles. We didn't talk, unfortunately. He kept snapping out of it and he would shake it off and then return to his food. After he finished the main course, I fetched him a piece of a strawberry pie plus 1 last drink mixed with 2 more pills for good measure. He gulped it down without so much as a thank you for a few moments. So he took himself into the sitting room, back to his favorite armchair, the clock above the mantelpiece of chimed. It was getting late. The boneless would arrive any minute. Now I was cutting it close, a real close, and my husband's eyelids are fluttered, and then his head. Finally, I approached the armchair and pulled the newspaper away. Like a light, perfect. I grabbed my hand back in code and then raced to the front door and unlocked it. I didn't have much time. The street buried over rotten flowers and a spoiled a flash. The aroma was so intense it stung my nostrils. I took a deep breath, held it and then walked forward, and then the end of the street is there a fraction of a second. I looked over and saw it, the boneless. I was too late. The glare blinded me up at the most wonderful feeling of serenity and knowledge that everything would be all right, and then I wouldn't have to worry about my husband or the island ever again. Soon my hands trembled. No scream. The voice in the back of my head, "It's a trick." I'd taken several steps forward without realizing it. With a deep breath I turned away and chill ran down my spine as I became aware of a horrible writing sound like bugs crawling over one another, the door and frame, with my eyes facing forward at the entire time. I raced down the hall from the sitting room. My husband was on the oar, a pool of drool leaking from the corner of his mouth out of the rug. The room that up. As the writing sound to follow me. I bit my bottom lip, clenched my face. I saw the glow of the bonus that reflected in the picture's frames mounted above the fireplace. The stench was so strong that it made me drive. There was no escape. Soon it would be all over. I had a lifetime of being a vegetable to look forward to. Maybe they would put my husband and me in the same hospital bed, thinking that what we would want to. I just had an idea. I rushed forward towards the cellar and my husband started. The last thing I saw before exit in the room was him shaking his head. He screamed, but not for long. His voice quieted and then play a terrible Google. I resisted the urge to look back. I made my way on the steps into these, otherwise the door, my hands, trembled as so violently. It took 3 attempts to get the key in the padlock. The rising sound. I grew louder and louder, and so it was with me in the room, and locked the padlock and then unwrapped the chain from the handles for a moment. I want something warm and pulsating that touched the back of my ankles, my whole body shivering at the last possible second, and I pushed open the double doors and I climbed onto the street. And then I got up and I ran. I ran halfway across the island towards my mother's house, where I unlocked the front door and pulled it open. I looked to behind me, where's my back against the wall, and burst into tears. It was over, I was saved. I came on at the top of the stairs, I wiped away my tears and I climbed into my feet. My mom appeared, still wearing a nightgown, and asked what had happened. I said that I was worried about her, and then I came to check we're back in the bed, and then gave her a kiss on the forehead. I love you, Mama. She rode my cheek, I love you too. In the kitchen I helped myself to a bottle of wine and I broke down in tears again. I kept thinking about what I had seen and heard. The awful sounds of my husband made. It played in my mind again and again. I kept thinking about what I could have done differently, about whether there was another way, a simpler one that didn't involve anyone getting hurt. I felt a growing and knot of guilt in the pit of my stomach, but it's too late to change anything now. Now all I can do is wait. There is no way I could sleep, not even if I wanted to add. Sunrise the bonus will depart and then I'll make my way down to the dock, sell my husband's boat to the mainland. I'm finally ready to leave this damn place and never look back. By the time anyone realizes what's happened, I'll be long gone and starting my new life. I can hardly wait. I'm a monster who used to hunt other monsters for the government, written by Richard Mills at 45. Through the walls I crawled up my closet, quietly clicking against the pipes, and Samantha is all the vermin scattered in my presence. After I put an end to Drive West, the agency had been riled up, looking all over the entire state for me, their prized at killing machine. All in all, that's what I was doing, a means to an end search rather than a scientist. For what I perceived as about a month I've been living in the walls of the facility, feeding off whatever rodents and small animals that I can get my clothes on, everything from possums to spiders to rats. You see, this way I can live right under their noses. Sure, it's cramping whatnot, but it says sacrifice that is well worth it. I could tell we're getting exhausted. It was becoming a waste of resources going out there to try and find me. The higher UPS probably know it, whoever they were, not that it was truly a concern of mine. So one night I decided I was going to leave. I was done being cooped up in the walls of this building. I figured I'd give him the situation enough time for the agency to slow down in the reference, being careful to keep my claws from scratching any of the material and giving away my location by making too much noise. No, Jada, this all started because you're an incompetent fool in 16 days, because you just couldn't listen to. Not only is she probably has 6 feet under, but that monster play she created is out there. I know it's next. The voice about the doctor and tear down through one of the covers, picking up the familiar center of Dr. John. The room below was a pristine, sterilized white. I like pretty much all the labs in this building, Dr. John and his apparent rivals did. Less than 2 feet apart, the other scientists shot at him with a fury that I don't even know why I took this job in the first place. The other scientists recoiled, taking a step back and adjusting his lab coat. John, He stepped closer. We both know full well why you took this job. You want to study the things that are to the earth, the things that go bump. Good night, right, because it was one of those things that took your daughter, isn't it? Immediately. And John, cactus fist and 3 vicious blow, with the man following up his punch with an angry tirade, nice way to God, don't you ever use my daughter like that again. Do you hear me? Keep her name out of your mouth before I shove a bottle of acid in it. The scientist who had taken a hit to swing back, connecting to punch with John as if you were a stuffed animal, causing him to slam violently into the wall then be knocked unconscious. The subject 68. Thank you. Where did you come from, Dr. John? Inquired Braun. I stated bluntly, my name is Brian is once again thanks for that. And then also I didn't get the chance to thank you for sparing me a while back when you escaped, but I see you didn't share the same mercy for Drive West. I honestly don't blame you. Until today, to be polished by marble of the room, I spared your life, Doctor, I said. Now I need you to perform a similar courtesy for me, and that is. John raised an eyebrow. Help me escape unseen and get out of this wretched place, and I've been here long enough feeding off the creatures that lurk in the walls, and it's time for me to go back out to where I belong, to freedom. John, pause for a moment, thinking critically about what I just said. I think I can do that after the higher UPS decided necessity than qualification, but they needed someone in charge as quickly as possible. Security keeps an eye on everything that goes in and out of this building, so that will be a bit of a challenge. No worry about the physical threats, I replied, spreading my fingers and allowing my clothes to be put on full display. Things are getting strange around here and people aren't telling me stuff they should be. Something tells me that I won't be in this position for a very long. I simply nod, in my head, in agreement, fully empathizing with the John's decision, although we had different reasons for our long-awaited departure from the. John and I got to work at how to get ourselves out of here. I, of course, was, and mainly reduced to sneaking around and doing reconnaissance. Well, John played the system from the inside, manipulating the guards and using his title to gain access to whatever we may have needed. John called over one of the commanding guards with a special key card. We needed to access the weapons room in case things went wrong. I needed John to be able to defend himself, so I told him to stock up on whatever he was capable of concealing underneath his lab coat. It wasn't just the human security personnel that we had to worry about, but other cryptids had been captured and contained in the building. Matt, first the plan was to sneak past and avoid absolutely everyone and everything, but then the idea of using one or two of the cryptid manipulate the voices of the victims of loved ones I would know, seeing as I've had to take down a few myself. Once I arrived to the cryptid containment cells, I looked up and down the hall making sure no guards were currently posted. How much time before they would switch off. So I had to move fast, Dr. John, and giving me here, intending it to use it on the cage, I cracked across the ceiling on all fours, scaled my way down the wall and stood up in a bipedal fashion staring at you want to go up choice, through the glass of a cell which had been especially soundproof, in order to prevent him from successfully using his voice. What is, dear Skull, keeping his jaw restrained? With my strength, your little baby, or I'll kill you. Is that understood? My star holder? Bury my teeth to intimidate to the opposing creature and establish dominance. The one to go. Still, try to wiggle free and fight the hold that I'd put him in there, but I only tightened my grip and kept him in place as he fought to get away in order to intimidating my fingers. What's my friend? And I love my claws to be seen by Hannah just inches away from his eyes. It was clear that he knew that my throat was serious. He quickly gave up fighting when he realized my physical power was too great for him to combat, as I had him in place the one to go, and then began to mimic the voice of a doctor, John, in order to speak to me. You're like the others. You are strong and very strong. They will surely eliminate you if you do so, and believe me when I say they have the means to put an end to your existence. The one that goes to sign it for a momentum, contemplating my statement as he lay against the wall. Still, I will come back for you. I will help you get back to freedom, so long as you make me get one promise that you'll be faithful to, and that is encrypted. Scout, his mouth is still motionless. You shall never kill and seek out another human again. Call me, feast on. And what nature provides. Unless a human has initiated conflict to desires to cause you great harm, you will leave them be. I know what you are, how you became a disaster city, but if you're able to fight your lost, your theories, for their flesh and bone, I will see it that you are free and once again, if you assist me. I had never seen him or a shot expression on any entity before human-animal repair. I know that you are one of them. Some time ago, and there is still that spirit of empathy and dwelling and deep inside you, even if your bloodlust tells you otherwise. I could tell that he was highly complicated. He finally went back and forth in his mind, trying to grasp the gravity of what I was proposing. I encouraged him to hurry up and come to a decision, and we wouldn't have much longer before the night shift cards. I started making the rounds, lifeless eyes, and towards the end of the hallway. I will return for you what you have, my word, I said, latching onto the wall next to me as I began to crawl back up into the air duct entrance. We gave each other one last glad to recognition before going our separate ways. I did truly intend to come back, turn the sound of a female voice over the speaker. It was apparent that they had realized that the Wendigo was out of containment in. Time was running out. I had sped up and died, following Dodger Johnson all the way to the north end of the building where he would be waiting for me. I had released the one to go on the south end, and I could hear the footsteps of all these soldiers progressing down the opposite direction that I was heading in it. Most of them are cursing and swearing about having to respond to the security letter to such a late hour. I made it to where I needed to be, climbed out of the air ducts and dropped down into the transportation garage, the place where shipments of supplies were sent in and out from the facility. John was waiting for me in one of the transport trucks, the engine running and the back doors to the storage grate open. I jumped in the back of the truck in the picture of a Dr. John buying us enough time to disappear. So far, everything had gone the way it should have. We had made it out to seemingly undetected the planet, truly gone and perfectly. I spoke with the Wendigo. We have to go back for him sometime soon, I told John, to which he snapped his head back in response, taken his eyes off the road, and momentarily what he said, because we need to hurry up and leave this truck behind, he said, ignoring my statement, and there's a good chance they could have a tracker on it. I questioned as to why they didn't put one on me. My added one doctor was in the process of designing what she never thought that it would be, as far as shelter and food for a woman who was so scientifically gifted and smart. She was quite the fool. Trust me when I say that you made the right choice. Women you chewed up. The world is much better off without her. I presume she showed you very little kindness as well, and I responded, definitely always belittle me every chance. Once a few hours had passed and we had traveled nearly 800 miles, John pulled the truck into an abandoned parking lot in a law firm building, making this portion of our traffic come to an uneventful, and from here we'll head over to the nearby forest to wait it out for a bit. John pronounced as he retrieved a handgun from his pocket. I also brought a grenade, if you were wondering. Brilliant idea, doctor, but you remember what must happen when things calm down. And I told him, yeah, 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 yeah. He waved me off at a light-hearted fashion. We both exited the vehicle through our separate ways and began a journey over to the woods. It was only minutes after when I stopped us after an idea it hit me. Shall we destroy the truck? I proposed it, leaving Johnny's son know that will attract way too much attention and come off as suspicious. For now, just let them find it. They'll be busy with that piece of evidence and let's focus on us. We continue to track into the untamed landscape. I'll be truthful when I say it fell out quite irritating having to move so slow in comparison to what I was used to in order to keep pace with John, and the trees were much more dense and vegetation was all around us growing with seemingly no intention of slowing down. And we were only about a mile deep into the train. I intended to go at least at 10 o'clock, before we had stopped for the day. Suddenly I picked up the sound, a strong, intoxicating smell of us, something from above. No. I wasn't entirely sure what it was. Before I could finish my sentence, I was quickly hit with a powerful blow, hard enough to send me a sword through the air and slamming into a nearby tree. The hair today is me, but only slightly. I was able to quickly get up and recover, standing up and finally getting to look at my attacker. In front of me was a giant avian creature of some sort of. It was massive, even taller than me, as it's done in the ground, and his wingspan had to be more than 20 feet. The head of the creature is shaped like that of a rectangle and didn't have much of a neck, but towards its lower half it possessed huge or razor-sharp talons that can more than likely hold an entire car in them. Its anatomy was as terrifying as it was strange, not to mention its lengthy black beak with the multiple rows of teeth to begin my attack, causing me to fall off and back onto the ground. John had tried to run with the creature, was far too swift from swooping down in and grabbing his tender figure, and it was a massive talons please help me began to fly in the opposite direction, going deeper into the forest. I quickly got down on all fours and then began to chase after it, putting every ounce of effort possible into keeping up with the entity. I leaped over rocks, launched onto trees and jumped from one trunk to another. This creature was fast, but I was getting grounded and closing the gap. The only problem was that I would have to wait until he landed to follow up with an attack, and by that point John could either be dead or severely injured. "Let me go, you!" shouted before trying to kick his way out of the creature's talons, even attempting to shoot him once again. But the gun, and he pulled the trigger, confirming the magazine. I know what is. That being creature had started to slow down with John still in its grasp, and I picked up the scent of several more beans that smelled just like him, and I turned my attention what was by far the biggest tree we had passed, so far side of gigantic nest filled with several smaller versions of the avian creature that had snatched John up. It was a female. After all my thoughts, there was still sizable enough to easily rip John apart, as if we were nothing more than a worm with limbs and without any. Am I left in his weapon to defend himself? That would soon become his agonizing reality, and I lashed out of the trunk of the tree and hurried north as fast as I could. The offspring of the creature pointed their beaks and squats excitedly at the side of their mother, approaching which John responded by throwing a punch and clocking him at the table. Even though it did practically nothing to stop the young creature. His courage was admirable, his seconds into the underside of his beak, causing it to release a shrill, "So unpleasant you got." Remember, my hearing is far better than a human's. So while John is complained, my ear canals were brutally stinging from the sound. Waves burst in through them, and the mother was extremely distraught with what I had done to her child, and retaliation she had time to do. Swooped down and rammed me with her big, but I didn't miss, and instead packed to John, who fell out of the nest and tumbled down to a lower branch on the tree, hanging on for dear life. As I try to make quick, simultaneously grab my arms, I could feel the slimy saliva-coated flash of their throats as my hands and deeper into the esophagus. My contacted the reference by flipping my hands, palms up while it's still inside them, and then straighten my fingers to extend my claws outwards. This caused them to pierce through the backs of their necks, which I then followed up by dragging my arms at vertically towards, angrier than ever before. It was obvious that she wanted to tear me to shreds and make me suffer for what I done. She flew into a U-turn in mid-air, circling back and flying towards me as fast as possible. She proceeded to pull her wings in closer to her body. Increase in your speed as she barreled it towards me. But I drew my claws out, preparing for the inevitable collision when she hit me, and I was sent to flying off the nest and slamming into the top of another tree. But with these beautiful that I've been collided with, I thought I nearly the entire length of the tree, stabbing and cracking a multitude of branches. In his hand, play, wiggle it to my fingernails, and then, over your motion, John, toss the grenade to me. I called it in the family in my hand as I tilt in my head up to the sky. Giant bird was making another circular lab, coming back for a third blow, wanted a time and just right to avoid a disaster. I made sure to wait for the perfect opportunity. I'm concentrating on how fast she was closing the distance and deciding from there, 50 feet away, the intent, hunger for revenge and malice, and her baby eyes were like anything I had witnessed before her. She really wanted to make sure that I suffered at her hand. When she died and range, I jumped up, wrapping myself around her feathery body and digging my claws into her back, making sure to drag them up and slice her flesh for some extra damage. She hauled, trying to wiggle and wake me up, but it was futile, and I reached into a beach during screams of agony and shoved the grenade down her throat as quickly as possible, making sure to avoid of those serrated teeth by then, retracted my claws from her back and let go, falling off and sliding across the ground while kicking up dirt from the leftover and momentum of our struggle. Now I quickly recovered it, getting up and turning around to witness what was about to come. She kept snoring through the air volume to make another circle to hit me up, but as she began to turn, a small but a sudden boom erupted from the depths of her beak, echoing off of the surrounding trees. Nearly half of her head had been taken off and destroyed by the explosion, and exposing her really shaped skull and coating the vegetation nearby and her now signature dark purple blood. "My God, John," exclaimed from behind. "That was just, I don't even know how." To John's enthusiasm and proud of our teamwork, I scared over back to him. He had on his hand in the air for some strange reason as I approached. "Why are you doing that, Doctor?" I inquired. "It's a high five. You never done it before?" "No, but I would be willing to try," when I reached down my right hand and slapped my palm against his, to which he immediately snarled in pain as he grasped his wrist. "I forgot about the strength and I'll be fine," he whined vigorously, shaking his hand. "We should quiet down, Doctor." And I told him, before something else hears us all, right, well, I guess you could say that I'm the brains and you're the... My phone on the following record has saved as an audio file on my roommate Nina's computer from the tabs that are open on a browser. It seemed like she was trying to transcribe the recording that posted here. I didn't know her very well, but she was a lovely girl and she'll be missed. I finished a part of the transcription and I'm not sure what to make of it. Maybe you will have better insight. If there is any interest, I'll be sure to finish the rest of the file. Cheers. Kayla God, where do I start? I already submitted this information to the university 2 days ago. Now I might even be subject to disciplinary action. They think it's a hoax. Like I would jeopardize my irritation, my entire future. No, Okay, I'll begin at the beginning like David freaking Copperfield right in the beginning. The following is a record of the University of Iceland investigation of the ice cave in Iko Glacier near Yokozuna Lagoon. My name is Amina Brown. I'm a posted Dodge Roll Fellow at the University of Iceland in Viking and Medieval Norse Studies. My specialty is Ronaldo, with an interest in comparing runic inscriptions in Iceland and Greenland and Newfoundland. I intend to prove that Viking settlement expanded beyond Lancia, Alex Meadows, and moved to south towards Maine and maybe even never mind. You don't need my CV, Jesus, if I still have a job tomorrow, if I'm still alive tomorrow, if you don't know. There's been non-stop earthquakes and shake in the country for the past week. It's not severe here in regular, but you can feel like constant vibration beneath your feet, like the earth is trembling. We got word a few days ago that a group of some kind of inscriptions in a cave beneath the ice. This struck me immediately, is strange because there aren't any known Viking settlements or archaeological sites in the vehicle scout area. The hypothesis was that the earthquakes and must have shaken some ice loose, maybe exposed something that had been long buried. Those skeptical couldn't afford to pass up a possible grant opportunity, which is how I found myself in the car with Professor Johnston and Jacob Anderson, a research fellow from Norway, making me 5-hour trip to Yokosuka. Professor Jansen, whose specialty is a medieval Norse and linguistics, was clearly unhappy. I should be in town for the assignment. Really, we had all drowned these shit. End of the stick? No, I remember him ranting that, not even 30 minutes outside of town, something about a stupid tourist and children's graffiti, and it couldn't even be bothered to take pictures and calling anti-Instagram until Jacob I corrected him. May I do agree that the lack of pictures I was strange, and every tourist in Iceland it carries a camera. Is there a primal, somehow old, a forest outside of time? God, if only I knew then. I had been to Yoko-Sal before, but walking up the crest of the rock to the lagoon felt well and different this time. Yokoso is a glacier lake. A giant pool of freezing water has started, with Arctic blue ice, enormous pieces even lying the shore. Some give any sense at the tourist nickname, Diamond Beach. When we arrived, though, it was late afternoon, and I remember thinking that the icebergs were floating slowly through the water like ghosts. I recall so clearly that there was a lone seal of creating a weak, weather lagoon at the ocean play me off balance. The final tours of the day it ended. Any food trucks parked to the side were packing up to leave. The tour guide who found the inscriptions, a man named Aaron, I don't remember his last name, but Aaron wearing a red jacket, medicine at the cafe on the far side of the lagoon. He explained that he had been taking me tourists around my boat when he noticed a large cave where not existed before, tucked into the side of the glacier maybe. He waved his own words, assuring us that it was just a short walk in the cave opening and was immediately significant in itself, a high Arctica. It was obvious from 10 miles away that it had been carved from the stone rather than created by natural forces. Even Professor Jansen and Russian clothes that are on his hands over the markings. These sides of the entryway were bordered by intricate cross hatches in the rock lines with the interlocking circles, a typical of north side. It was so what preserved that the carvings could have been that made yesterday with very little signs of erosion. RNC please, by our reaction, leaving to away by the lagoon until we were finished with our Are you inspection? It was a Jacob who first pointed out the creatures and rodent carvings above the cave opening, and I said, on my tiptoes trying to get a better look, until Professor Johnson yelled for Aaron to bring over some boxes that healthy life. As for the turbo boat, and we managed to stack them like a stair against the rock, getting about 2 miles off the ground. I thought from below that they were a narwhal Navy SEAL. But I love all The carvings were confusing. At first glance they only passively resembled images that I was familiar with. I remember there was a long silence as we studied them, taking turns up and down the boxes. Professor Johnson proposed that the middle carving was the world tree, with the 9 of the carvings on either side representing the dying worlds. I initially agreed with his hypothesis, but this carving looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. For one, the branches seemed like they were drooping, whether or not like the tree was dying, and the most obvious change was a carving of some enormous animal at its base. Its appendages with the branches of Jacob suggested it could be a giant squid, the carving at tentacles, true, and the face was like an octopus. But as I bent closer I could see clawed feet and gripping the roots of the tree and long and narrow wings that stretched away from either side, and it was a chimera, some horrible mixture of land and sea and air that made me deeply uncomfortable. And then what Professor Johnson said were the 9 worlds. I was just looking at them when the professor called me inside the cave, but they seemed like snakes horned to things, more terrible combinations of creatures that couldn't exist. I follow the Professor Jansen and Jacob itself, which opens quickly into an incredible blue and ice. All around us were dozens of rune stones assembled in concentric circles from the back to the center of the room, ending in a spiral of polished white stones. In the very middle of the professor was that following the circles, moving from stone to stone excitedly. I think it's a nostrand. I remember him saying the darkest realm of the Norse underworld. I glanced at some of these carvings. On the closest stones there were skulls, what it looked like, flames, and then they had to go to that thing again, rising as if from the center of a mountain, and it didn't have any of the usual depictions of the underworld, these serpents and dragons, typical of the mythology, and I walked to the center of the room to the spiral. Something about it made me shudder, Jeremy, with a nauseous unease. The heaven down. I ran my hand over it. The stones were more ivory than white, notched on the edges. I know what I reeled up, finding Jacob just behind me. I think they're bone, I said. I did. It's ridiculous to say at the time. Surely they were seal or sheep whale, maybe, I told myself. Professor Johnson was moving towards the back of the ice cave, gesturing towards the 3 tunnels that led away from the main chamber. He wanted to explore them. Professor, I said, we've done what we set out to do. This can't be a hoax. If it is, it's one of most elaborate Viking houses ever created. Surely we verify that there's a find worthy of further investigation. The Professor Johnson protested. He was enthusiastic, almost agitated, talking very quickly. He was insistent that we go down the tunnels, even just one tunnel, he said, finally, to quickly see if there was another chamber. I should have said no, we all should have said no, but Professor Johnson was the head of our department and then neither of us had worked closely with him before. Our funding was based on his approval. Crap, we were cowards. I saw it too, and Jacob's eyes when he, Professor, left to ask Aaron outside for a robe. He was nervous, upset. I'm not sure, Professor I've never seen anything like that, and my specialty is picture stones, and I agreed with them. The artwork in rune style seemed to Norris, but the subject matter was completely foreign, not to mention disturbing. Professor, you wasn't even an expert in art, he was a linguistics professor. For, okay, documentation purposes, try to be more objective, fine objective. That was when Professor Johnson returned with a line that he had fixed to something outside of the cave entrance, pulling these slack beyond anyone want to pick a tunnel. There was a long silence when we didn't reply, disappearing into the darkness. He had the single torch and we walked on the tunnel for about 15 m or so before seeing a pale light shining ahead. At first we thought it was daylight, but it became clear as we entered a second chamber that it came from the ceiling, millions of microdots of aquamarine phosphorescence. There is a small pool in the center too, glowing the staring at the ceiling and open mouth. As Jacob and the professor argued about the origins of the biomaterial glowworms, Professor Johnson said I saw them in New Zealand. Something about the dots I didn't seem exactly right to me. They weren't random as you would expect them to be, and I started to pick familiar shapes and patterns out of the clusters of white constellations. I said I think they're constellations. Nobody heard me. Jacob insisted that glowworms that don't exist in Iceland, bending down to get a better look at the pool of water and it's probably plankton off his glove and sweeping his hand through the water. And that's when everything fell apart. Jacob screamed his hand and emerged hissing from the pool. The skin have gone from the bone. He was holding the rest with his good hand, screaming and screaming. God, it's like I can still hear it. Professor Jansen was frozen the first aid. I remember yelling at bending down next to Jacob. Do we have first aid, Aaron Moss, for the tourists running back towards the tunnel entrance? And that was when we realized that the tunnel entrance had disappeared. They can't be, God, I know, I said, I still holding Jacob as the best I could, try not to look at his hand. It just can't be freaking gone. The rope was gone too. We realized the severed end of it lying on the cave floor, cleanly sliced in half a rock falls. Maybe there was another quake. Let's wait for Aaron. Then I said, she knows we're here, he can dig us out. Jacob screaming, it quieted to a whimper. His hand is still smoking in the dim light. I knew even then that there had been no earthquake and no rock fall, and I know it sounds bad, but 1 minute the tunnel entrance was there and the next it wasn't. Like we had slipped through the fingers of the cave to some upside down world, and I was certainty even that no one was coming. I don't quite understand it. Written by Chupacabra, mine from Russia, so please pardon my grammar. I'm so confused and looking for answers Amazon, Russian supernatural forums, but still haven't found any clues. This happened about the 15th. I was around 11 o'clock. At the time, me and my parents lived in a relatively large city, and you're all. The city is famous for its massive industrial complex and polluted air, which is evident in the summer. So every year my parents would send me on to visit my grandpa in Siberia for 2 to 3 weeks. Aside from the fact that he was obviously very knowledgeable in history and culture, he most entertaining stories from his expeditions. He was like a real-life Indiana Jones to me. 20 years ago, his team discovered a massive network of ancient villages in Siberia. So they built a permanent research camp with all the facilities, and they even had showers and electricity, junior staff members and temporary buildings and academic officers like my grandpa. What's the latest news? And then grandpa said to me while Pioneer, in time for us to hit the road, Dad went back to his car to have a nap before driving home, and we headed it to a river pier where my grandpa's colleague waited for us in a boat. Let me introduce you, grab a side, this is my grandson. He's a very smart lad, and this is a Petrovich. Can you specialize in ritual burials? This spring we discovered an amazing mount on the bank of the river 1 hour away from our camp, a very untypical one too. So I'm Steven Petrovich is helping us make sense of it. I gave Steve, what are you, a girl? I had mixed feelings. I was a little afraid of him and wished that he wasn't with us. But then he and Grandpa started exchanging stories in anecdotes, and I realized that he was a fun guy, just a little rough around the edges. I even said to tell him my school stories, like when we get pranked our teacher by covering the chalkboard and wax, and he seemed to like them. After 2 hours of sailing we'd find a ride, are you? Spectacular landscape opened before my eyes, a huge mound right in the bank of the river. It looked so monumental and fearsome. And he said his son. I would think that I traveled back in time if not for the researchers' tents, as surrounding the hill there it is magnificent, my grandpa said. One of these staff members helped us from the boat ingredients. His name was Valentina by Donovan. My grandpa said we need you to take a look at something before the shift ends. Sure, just a moment. He replied, nice stuff, and will you please show our young fellow around? Well, I'll be right back and we all will have to our camp. So we went on a little tour with us and your grandpa was a great researcher, so I assume you know some basics about the culture of. It's not the case here. It looks like an entire village of peaceful surface where a forest fire, but we also consider the possibility of a mass offering. The corpses are burnt but not cremated in it, which is not typical. What even more unusual, instead of regular ritual weapons there are iron sickles, one per body. Some militant cult might have raided the village inn and made a mass sacrifice and he made a spooky face. Usually scary stories didn't impress me much, but the atmosphere of the Siberian some are not to the job. I felt uneasy. Assume my grandpa came back and we were on our way to the camper. The camp was at the sorry professor, I'm just not used to being around children and I'll have to watch what I say. When we arrived at the camp after 10 hours of resting and my father's car and I didn't feel sleepy at all, so my grandpa decided to throw a little party to celebrate my arrival. Me, grandpa, stuff, and then a few staff members gathered around the campfire. I thought a lot more relaxed and a large group. So I suggested a contest for these. Read a story. We are scientists who study mythology, so it would not be easy to beat us. Grandpa chuckled. By the way, do you know what? People come up with these scary stories a lot smarter than animals, which makes us both powerful and vulnerable. Our perception of reality is so cute. It would be insufferable for us to cope with all the bad things that can happen. If not, where our ability to come up with explanations? For example, our ancestors that really like saunas, but even something is fun and relaxing is baby, and it can be dangerous. A person can overheat and have a cardiac attack or something. You must never go to the sauna alone. Second, you must never fall asleep in the sauna and, most importantly, never bathe after the sun sets. All these rules make sense if you think about them rationally, because violating them I could result in a fatal accident. But our ancestors came up with another explanation. They believed that there is a demon who came to those who broke the rules. The demon kissed them and exhaled hot air into the lungs and killing them. And this is the power of the collective unconscious. I replied, and I can understand what this legend is coming from. What is the demon only come out after midnight? Why do all the bad things in scary stories always happen after midnight? So dangerous? Because our perception is not that good. Even ordinary things can appear in the darkness. But our ancestors believed that midnight was not the only dangerous time of the day. There were 4 borderline times when the line between the natural world and the spirit world explorers. Midnight is sunrise and sunset and the day. Did I ever tell you about the midday, ladies? And the day lady is the spiritual manifestation of a hot day when it is too dangerous to work in the field because of potentials. During that time of the day, Sarahs would shut down any field working and go back home to wait the following a few days in the camper and nothing but entertaining. But I didn't feel worried, even though we were stranded in a Siberian forest near ancient burial, being surrounded by rationally thinking adults to focus on their work, had a relaxing effect on me. Most of the time we were in household items and even some random, the sound of breaking glass, the address to the other side to see what had happened, and soon enough they noticed that a few houses had a broken windows, all of a sudden that was facing the field. This scared the hell out of me. I seriously believed that the dead were disturbed by the excavations and they were warning us. Grandpa reassured me that because of the hot weather, contrary to popular belief, summers in Siberia can actually be pretty hot, and this particular summer was unusually hot. And just in case these were some hooligans or wild animals, Stefan suggested to have more people look after the camp, and this never happened again, and I almost forgot about it. The real incidents happened 4 days before I left. It was bright and extremely hot. And when this day I said I'll see you there to the other staff members, and I took my backpack and we headed to the camp. 5 minutes later we heard one of these staff members calling my grandpa out loud, and he said probably something important and go to the camp and I'll catch up. And then he headed back to the excavation. It was 20 minutes later, right when I was right in the middle of the field, when I thought it's hard to explain, but it felt like a moving field of static electricity, the weeds in the field. It didn't move and it was a dead silence, but I felt an invisible wave and move and touch me here, and then I got the feeling that I will never forget. Out of nowhere I suddenly realized that I was dying. I couldn't breathe and time froze. My heart was beating quickly yet, and I said to myself, stop, it looks like a young woman on blonde and very pale. She was naked and how they sickle on her hand. She was so beautiful, she was painful to look at. Not even thought, now I'm ready to die. I will never see anything as beautiful. She didn't like angry or hostile, more like curious, but there was something off about her. In a moment I realized that she didn't have any paws. Their eyes were just all white, and it was a strange feeling that I was scared. I didn't want to die. She was an obviously evil creature, but the very idea that you would go away and plunged me into despair. The next thing I remember is that I heard some noise, some regular earthly noise, perhaps from the movie. Is it? She turned her head in the direction of the noise and started to move there. What was a group from the cab, and they were very worried. They picked up my grandpa and rushed back to the camp. They talked about how hard it would be to get an ambulance out here. A nurse in our camp had examined grandpa and concluded that it was sunstroke. For some reason I didn't tell them anything about what I had seen, and my son died, but I didn't want anyone to know about the lady in the field. Luckily, grandpa again a few hours later, do you like to? Very confused. He didn't recognize people and you couldn't explain what had happened. He fully recovered by the next morning, but he had changed. Most of the time he was as fun and kind as usual, but from time to time he kind of froze and just looked into the void for a few minutes. When I tried to ask him if something was wrong and he didn't respond, you just gave me a very grim look. I never asked him about it again. Then, 2 days at a party Grandpa gave me a hug and wished me luck in school and said that he would see me on winter holiday. I was happy to see you, Pioneer. He said he didn't come for winter holidays, as my father told me. He just doesn't feel like being around people. Right now I'm recalling the words of my grandpa. Now my perception of reality is so cute. Will it be insufferable for us to cope with all the bad things that can happen, if not for our ability to come up with explanations? I wondered if I was a kid, made up this story to help me cope with and Grandpa's sudden change in quick dad. Or maybe it's the opposite and I'm trying to pretend that he died of natural causes and I never saw what I saw and I changed to not as much as my grandpa. But something is wrong with me. Sometimes, do you like I can't experience happiness and beauty the way that other people do. I just wish that I could see her again for a brief moment. The following summer was the first time that I had mixed feelings about visiting Grandpa, and I was even going to tell my parents that I would rather go to a summer camp with my friends this year. But I didn't have to do it. When I was 16, my father told me that there was in fact a criminal investigation of his dad due to suspicious circumstances. A few windows of his house were broken, as though someone had broken. I'm in the Navy and sailors are going missing. My command is covering it up. Play for a few months waiting for classes to start in FYI. Never listen to your recruiters. They don't have an idea when you are graduated or go to the fleet. They told me that I would be in and out of training so fast that I wouldn't even have time to unpack. I got here on Halloween and it's not close to New Year's anyway. That's not why I'm writing this. There is something here and not some whack job of military experimenter, something much older than that, something terrifying. When you are in between classes and training, you live your life, assigned to a duty section and a permanent watch, basically meaning you have a what days and times that you work, either cleaning, or walking around the base and making sure no Marie and say I got their heads as stuck in the toilet and at the our men have working air conditioning. My permanent watches, mids rover, meaning that I get to walk my happy butt around base in the middle of the night with a partner, or I get to walk around, making sure that the fire extinguisher that gets checked every hour as an expired or discharged that suddenly, and this is called a fire watch. I first saw it when I was on a very dull fire watch. I just checked the second floor is extinguisher and emergency exit for the 5th time. That night when I heard scratching I looked up from my clipboard, thinking someone got chidey and out of the base club and forgot that we had a front door. What I saw was that not the drunken sailor man. I expected it, but what looked like a hand in the light from the escape I could see that it was long and then almost a mossy green color with a short, broken yellow fing. I'm watching. Sure that our barracks is currently filling with carbon monoxide or is some gas that could make me hallucinate when the door violently starts rattling. So, like these stupid junior seller I am, I run towards the door cause my unarmed carrying butt is going to be able to do a dang thing right. A few steps from the door I stopped, blood running colder than Neptune's nipples at a blue nose ceremony. This thing, whatever the heck this thing is or why is tall, not just like, wow, I'm short, so everyone seems tall, but it's tall enough. It had been down to look into the small window on the fire escape door. It is green, and wildly then. Not just that, but its eyes glowed almost like two flashlights. When it saw me, it screamed the most ear-shattering scream I have ever heard. Mid's teeth were jagged and yellow and it had two flaring slides for its nose. As I dropped my clipboard and fell to the floor, I could hear foot, and that's the last thing I remember. When I came to, I was in a senior chief's office with him and our lieutenant is staring at me outside the office. It sounded like the whole night crew was shuffling around trying to pretend that they were busy. Yet after a series of rapid-fire questions and explaining what I saw, the lieutenant starts a swearing like well a sailor and left the room quickly to make some phone calls. The senior chief you call me explained that all the rovers had been recalled to the barracks, which never happens ever. It's a major security issue with even if it checking fire extinguishers and breaking up fights between Marines and RAC. This is boring. He also very sternly told me that I had seen nothing, that there was no gas leak and that I was to report to medical in the morning because it very clearly I was sick, running a fever and hallucinating. I was swiftly dismissed from his office and told her to go to bed. But as I was walking out of his office I was suddenly bombarded by the night crew asking what had happened and why they were recalled, and I told him honestly, I have no freaking. The next morning, after waiting several hours at sick call, I was given a clean bill of health. There was absolutely nothing wrong with me, no signs of illness, a disease, or defect, which doesn't always mean much coming from a Navy medical, but at that point I would take anything I can get. After returning to play the senior's office with my handy-dandy paperwork, I was once again sat down and told nothing had happened. I was also being put on the external night rover team, meaning that I would have a partner and will be checking at the outdoor areas of the base. Freaking fantastic. Right, you see some sort of tall green demon dude and I get to be stuck inside all night with it. A radio, a flashlight, and I may be competent partner who wanted to do more than hang out at the female barracks smoke pit. That was about a week ago. I was just starting to forget about the demonic green bean and starting to feel comfortable in my new watch when everything changed. I woke up this afternoon, go to my roommate in a full panic. One of the new seaman recruits, fresh out of boot camp, had gone missing at some point between when I got off work at 6 a.m. and when my roommate got out of the class at 2 p.m. The poor kid. It probably didn't even get to wash the smell of fear and live for 2000 out of his clothing before he went missing. The base was non-security and rover is what I assumed, my watch. We were given strict instructions to stay in Paris and radio when anything that we found. If we found anything related to the missing sailor, we were to not touch anything and called it in immediately while keeping everyone else away from it. Doesn't matter, and instructions aren't given to make sense or watch. Started off a fairly normal with a double the personnel. It was a much easier to cover ground. It's not feel so alone, and it sounds lame. One of the largest bases in the country, as creepy as hell, naturally, when there's only 2 people walking around outside. My partner and I took the path to the beach training area. All the other teams started with the parking lots and classrooms as we were walking to the beach. I hear this absolutely miserable what our next step would be. We could go forward and investigate it and find something that we didn't want to, or potentially break up some super secret spy plot. My partner was absolutely convinced someone was jamming our radios and we would be heroes if we could corner them. Not that anyone with that equipment would be unharmed, or would I think twice about picking off 2 junior as sailors. We could turn around at least until our radio were working and we could call for backup aid. My partner was convinced these experts, spies he dreamed up, would get away. Or we could split up. One of us go forward to investigate and one back to get help, the exact thing we were told not to do. So what do? We go forward because my partner is an absolute idiot and I ain't about to get, and we have to shut our radios off because the static is so overwhelming. My partner is so caught up in the idea that he's going to get a letter of recommendation that he didn't notice the droplets of blood in the sand. He also didn't notice the 19 sailors' name tag, be late by the low tide, and we were nearing the piers. When I saw the lights, I guess that I should probably just call them eyes. At this point my heart sank. I knew what I saw was real, and my partner was about to see it too, or he would have, if the thing I had. It launched out from what is a paradise. It was like watching one of those that trapdoor spiders attack. My partner had no clue what had happened, and I can only hope that his death was swift. I watched as the thing flew at him at an inhuman speed. I heard his bones. I shattered the skin from his face. Iran running blindly as fast as I could. I didn't even feel the pavement between my boots or stop running it, till I ran face first into the other rovers sobbing. I grabbed the radio and told Senior that it was bad, it was back and he needed to get down here immediately. We were all recalled, and once again I was in the office, this time surrounded by officers that I had never met. They assured me that they had a rescue team down in the area and that once again, I was hallucinating and I had managed to abandon my roving partner. That didn't last long ago. One of the officers, a rear admiral, I think. I don't know what's going to happen to me, and I don't know what happened to the other 2, but I do know a couple of things. One being your recruiter lied, and, given how all these senior enlisted and officers have acted, they knew something that was going on and they covered it up, and I think anyone who has been in a long enough knows the dangers aren't sunken ships or battles, but the things that work by the water. Second, I know that I'm not getting out of this mess. I didn't ask to be in, and so I'm writing this down here. I was lucky that I kept my phone headed and my cargo pocket. I don't know if the other branches have this problem, but know if you hear about a sailor going AWOL. It probably isn't what it seems. I hear them coming. Can I take your order, sir? I asked. The patron of his eyes remains affixed in the menu before I'm the other rolls, with the wet squad rotating independently and hungrily giving me once over. I'm used to it. What is the duty of a human now that works in a restaurant that serves a primarily human flesh? The man licks his lips with a dark tongue, though of course he isn't a man not really settled into a seat amongst peers and like-minded creatures. He can afford to relax a little. The colors of his suit start to fade and becomes disturbingly clear that he isn't wearing a suit at all. He is simply. What are the colors and shades of his own across the scaled skin? Like a chameleon, his eyes have begun to bulge from their sockets, expanding and contracting. He grins, revealing the multiple layers of a gray-green teeth behind its cracked lips and a slippery black tongue. Easily the length of my forearm burst from his mouth, like this side of his face, with a disgusting and lack of shame. He is like many of the others, the ones I referred to privately as the cannibals, though I suppose they technically aren't cannibals in the literal sense, as a cannibal is a human that eats another human, and these guys aren't human. If they ever were there, certainly not anymore, but the patrons aren't. Even the worst part, as I said, I'm used to it when I'm not used to what I am yet to become comfortable with, even after a year of employment, and what I doubt I'll ever get used to is the smell. And the smell, you see, it's just, well, it's delicious, it's absolutely divine, warm and steamy like roasted pork, and it makes one salvation. It only took a week or two of working here to turn myself into a fully fledged vegetarian, but I still have to. There just smells so good and it sickens me. I am deeply disturbed by how tasty the smell of freshly cooked human flesh really is. I hate it, but there is nothing I can do. I've tried and tried to get out of my contract, but there is simply no way out. 12 months ago, play victim to a series of unlikely and unfortunate events that is me bound to this, a terrible restaurant. Bound by the contract, I am forced to uphold it utterly and totally, and the owner refuses to release me. And even if she did, what then would she call me up and serve me to the gas? And I like to think that she wouldn't. I would hope that she really does see me as a colleague of sorts, and then we can part ways and good. Naturally that she would allow me to just leave, but I'm not so sure, and that frightens me, the uncertainty. I hope you don't think that I'm a monster, and, by the way, if you're referring to the freaks that run the sickening place as a colleagues, but I've learned a few things in life. You got to look out for number one, because no one else will. As much as restaurant horrifies and disgusts me, I have to look after my own best interest, and that includes keeping my colleagues outside, keeping my head down and doing my bloody work. And I come in when he wrote a demands, and one day my contract will end and I hopefully will be let free, and if not, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Get a move on. God for you. War is a female companion from across the table with a little belcher. I'm starving here, she grows, and I shoot her a glance at her stomach, distended and still shaded, pale pink from her dress, visibly rumbles and shakes. One of the male's eyes had been fixed on me this entire time, but his second and eye joins it up to stare at me and only me. I do not forget, and I try to keep my grimace. What's the feeling bad to reveal all 4 layers of a broken teeth, and I'll have that. Then, please, rare. And for you, madam. I ask you to turn into his. Try not to look at the monster on the table behind her, tearing into his meal like a rabid dog. Blood and spittle flying like thick rain and sprained out over the tablecloth. She grandson and scratches her chin with a four-fingered hand. When I read the messages, let me get at least staring around the room. It leaks a little with pause and her tongue shoots out to like it clean. Before retracting and messily behind her teeth, I clench my jaw. I'll have the blade line and a side of ribs. I write down her order. He's small ribs. At least she monitors. Get these orders to the chefs and I'll bring it all out as soon as it's ready. I hope you enjoy your evening. When I turn and head to the kitchen I can feel their eyes, or hungrily, into my back as I take my leave me, if it weren't for the owner try to tear me limb from limb between the tables. I'm sure that a great many of them probably would, and it's an unsettling feeling it to say the least. But the owners, I keep the patrons in line. I'm not sure if it's so much of a humanitarian solidarity but rather more like a practical employee maintenance initiative. They do struggle for staff here and I think my way through the maze of tables, avoiding the greedy Roman eyes of the guests and pretending that I don't feel and or care about their skin, crawling a little caresses as I pass them by. I don't know if they think that they're being subtle or if they simply don't care about to discuss me. I can bring issues to the owner and she'll probably kick the offender out right then and there, provided that they aren't too high profile. But it happens so much that it's not worth mentioning. What's the point? Just keep your head down and don't cause a fuss and then do your work. The ripen have. You smells of cooking flash double. As I push through the doors into the kitchen I feel the sweat. I start to pinprick across my skin. It wants. One of the waitresses passes me buying back out to the doors carrying 2 plates of a steaming pink red meats in her hands. She shoots me a glance with all 3 of her and her eyes but it doesn't smile. They're civil to me. The other waiters and waitresses, civil but not kind. I don't really give a crap. To be honest, I have no interest in being their friend, no need to. Would you blade line a side of small ribs and a steak? Rare, light drizzle, light drizzle. The chef bar looking up at me pupils and narrowing rapidly. He slams these, holding down under the counter with a spittoon. I suppose the drizzle's the best part. I'm just telling you what they ordered, birds. I reply lovely, holding his gaze. And then you know what he's got, good taste, there is always a too much drizzle. You prick bird too, shouts at me, but stuffs the order into the slides and grabs the arm, muttering and swearing to himself in the others as he turns back to the stove. The best tactic when it comes to these chefs is to just not take anything. I found my talk back and my irritate them. Bud's weakness is, where is the despiser? The kids, right? You know the other side of the kitchen. It looks like a series of dried and crusted human ears, but I can't be sure. He winks at me and points to the bloody plates on the side that one's ready to go outside table 12 o'clock. All right, I grab the plates too carefully. On the actual food, read in the notes for details of the meals. Contact, and this is the only one in the kitchen. It was actually decent to me, I'm not sure why. The cynic in me happily that he's trying to groom me, finding his time for the perfect opportunity to cut me down and cut me off. But then again, perhaps not one of the other chefs screwing up the orders. Back in my first month of employment, I was witness to a great deal of kitchen chaos and interstate fighting. The head chef, what time was it? Losing his wits and painting all the blame for his messed up orders. And Grammy and everyone believed him too wrapped up in their own stuff to see what was going on for themselves, and they just put their misguided faith in the authority. But I saw, and I always see. I see things that others don't, even with those are Roman eyes are there is, and so I was just trying to keep it on the down low and only told the owner. But Singh led to the next and the head chef was quickly fired. Me won back his respect and he recently earned the title of had shot himself information and regardless of its source, as a tendency to the cracks and trickle down, and Grammy became a much nicer to me after that. I suspect that he found out where his support came from one way or another, and I carry the order out to table 12. A waiter calls a woman. I like eyes and a mouth aborted by scorpion fangs. That rubs all four of his hands together excitedly. The mashed liver, sir, I announced as I placed the plate down in front of them. Is there anything else I can? But before I'm able to finish, the man is shoved, his face into the phone and desperation spraying the contents across the table and up and over my uniform and my chest. IMDb set by a powerful wife to the food and my complexion pales. The man turns to me, his eyes quiver and a little buzzing and rumbles in his throat. He stops eating, grunting as he does so, staring right at me, poised, intense, and I find myself suddenly very afraid. I want to take a step back, I want to run the heck away, but I am overcome with the terror that to do so. Are there anything else? Up on what's this moment rise, my gut tells me that something is wrong. Something is about to happen. Images of the monster legends right at me, springing from his chair and burying his fangs into my throat and tearing it open. I like what tissue paper race like fire through my head. Is the said, is this how it ends? No build up but no ceremony, just one rabbit costume play. The creature doubles over. He stands clutching at his neck. He screeches and noise which is quickly cut off by a gurgling and a spluttering in his throat. I stare at him for a second or two in confusion. Some of the other nearby patrons have turned to look as well. The man's distressed by the color and then releases me almost instantly. He slams his menu, he knocks over where is Sharon? Stumbles into the next table over. Everyone is looking now staring at the commotion and I realized, is he choking my after another second or two? I think that perhaps he is. What would you do in this situation, I wonder? I weigh my options at the time of the incident and it's possible that is there a staff eyes on me right now. Don't make a big deal of vagina, but do what needs to be done right. And I quickly step behind me monstrous man and I grab a hold of the cuff of his shirt to stop him from flailing the way. It becomes immediately clear that I have grabbed nothing but a roll of a scaled flash and start slamming the heel of my hand in between the shoulder blades. What the devil are you doing? Saving his life, sir. I replied back to grandson as I bring my hands on hard for the 5th time. Still, the creature chose his chest, rising and falling rapidly as he leaves. It is very well, here goes nothing. But I think to myself as I step forward and read both arms around him. Time to find out if you find the maneuver works on these things. My ball up, one of my fists against the place that I presume is solar plexus, and I bring the palm of my other hand down and onto it hard with the force of a punch and a chunk of a red, purple meat flies from the creature's mouth. I actually see it as a soar through the air and splatter against a bottle of wine a few tables down. The man's daggers and wheezes filling his lungs with and great balls of air. It's difficult to gauge expression on it. That monster is, but he turns to me. If I had to. Good guys, I would say that you like to rather be willing to be frank. Who you saved me? He's Butters. But I just delete him back to a city too, ignoring the round of applause that now rose across the restaurant for another situation. Indeed, I just make sure that he is alright and, still, reeling from the palpitations caused by my first suspicion, make a hasty escape to the storeroom as professionally as I can, avoiding eye contact with all as I do so. I wonder, as I walk, whether or not I had acted correctly, whether my moves were wise. What are the creature? Was it worth of saving? You didn't do it for him and you did it for you. It was easier to do something than to do nothing. But even now, even after saving one of the wrong, I still feel their hungry glances. I still shiver. This time under the guise of congratulations. I still see them look like their lips and sweat as I pass them by, and I despise them. John, I have rounded the corner right now. The restaurant, the storeroom sits at the end of the corridor, and at the opposite end is the room that uses as her office, and that's her name. The owner. And I look up at the song, Don't Think I Didn't See You, for some reason. The first emotion that passes through me is fear, but I try to force it down. Why should I be afraid? I didn't do anything wrong, and did I? It's fascinating how even the mirror of an authority figure I can make you doubt yourself. Yes, reply as cool as possible. Doing my best to maintain a neutral leaves red. I was grateful for not having to travel down to the freezers, the place the meat is held in. Captain, cool and fresh, grateful for the privilege of keeping the rooms out of sight and out of mind. But now it seems I am going to go down after all, and the meaning behind a request suddenly registers. Go, fetch me another leg from the freezer, another leg. My stomach turns into the thoughts. Seeing the food is one thing, be fleeting glimpses of these shops at preparation techniques as another, but to actually locate and carry the parts up to the kitchen myself, does she see this as a reward, as an increase of responsibility? Or is this some kind of sick joke? I don't know how these things work, I really don't. But I want to get out of here and go home, if only for the night. Keep your colleagues outside and go home. And so I grit my teeth, I steel my stomach, and I head off to the corridor, I said, through the locked door at the back of the restaurant and down the stairs into the bluish of frosty gloom, my breath cloudy by my mouth, my shiver, as I said, down into the dark. I step heavily out of the floor and start to stroll through the length of this new corridor, the kitchen that needs a leg. I push through the nearest door and come to a sudden stop, and I realized that I shouldn't have come down here. I should have refused to offer, I should have taken the keys back to her office, I should have passed the book to somebody else. All these thoughts and more flow to the forefront, say staring at the pieces of humans that are hooked in, packaged around the world, arms, legs, chunks of unidentifiable flesh, a torso hooked and stripped of lambs, a bucket of hands that sits on the ground to my immediate right, and in the corner. In the corner are a pile of heads. I don't need to look directly at them, I can tell, I can see it. I can see their white and staring eyes, lifeless and up to you, nice dagger backing out of the room, stumbling and tripping down to the ground with a loud house. Jesus Christ, I shout, screw this terrible place. And I set myself up against the wall, running my hands through my hair as these sweat freezes against my back, collecting my breath. I'll go back up. I'll pass the keys to another employee, tell them that TV or something, not doing it. I'm not spending another unnecessary second in this nightmare. I may be bound to employment, but, heel, you can't force me to come down here. She can't. And my thoughts are interrupted by a voice, soft and weak, from a little further down the corridor. Hello, I turned in stare, heart pounding once again. Hello, it sounds like the voice of a little girl. Please, is anyone there? Oh God, there's someone down here, someone else, someone alive. I scrambled to my face and stared down the corridor to the source of the voice, My breath that steams in the cold and the blue tents. Dare, it could just be a prank, John, a federal employee playing music, joke, or something worse, a test, a trap I should have. Glance behind, back to the stairs that lead up and out into the restaurant. Remember, John, you've got to look out for a number one. Self-preservation is key. Don't put yourself at risk. My primary thought process is interrupted by another. What, you're not even going to look like you can afford to take a John. This time I'm going to see you. My chevron run ahead after my hair and I could go unlock it. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I creaked on the corridor and deeper into the gloom, passing by more heavy doors, some with a circular, a little glass windows built into them, but I don't look directly through it one. But in the corner of my eye I see more than enough of the twisted and sickening horrors. It turns off at a right angle and goes on for another couple of minutes and then comes to an abrupt stop. There are a few more doors around there, all sealed tight. I stay still for a moment, head contact, heart pounding, and listen. I don't hear anything else. That there is nothing to be done here. I can just head back up to the restaurant relatively guilt-free and go the hell home. But that is not what happens. Please come to the voice, weaker this time, but quite clear enough, even muffled up behind the door, as it is a nice step closer and try to look through these disproportionately loud. I lean back around the corner and I should know the glance up to the stairs. This goes against every instinct of a self-preservation I have, but I can't help it. I'm only human. I start cycling through the keys in the ring, try and each one in the icy locker in the first. One fails, as does the second. Footsteps creak above me as someone makes their way across the ground floor. Key number 3, and let's try it. My hand shakes as I bring it to the lock, fumbling as I try to fit the key inside and succeed. The door rocks with a loud clock and I grab the handle, hauling it open, and I see clouds out and I curse as it washes over and my exposed skin. It takes a second to disperse, and when it does, I see her. She can't be more than 7 or 8. Knees are drawn up to her chest, arms wrapped tight around her shoulders. She sits there shivering violently in the corner of the room. The lines have been drawn in, Margaret, at various intervals across your body, around her arms or sides, her legs. She stares up on me with wide and frightened eyes, and I stare back to her right. All across the shelves are carved up pieces of a human body, encased and tight, translucent, a plastic wrapping, scarlet, stained. But we remain fixed in place for a moment. Her and I get out. John, screams the voice inside my head. She's the only living thing down here. She is being saved for a special occasion and they will notice if she is missing. That leave her here, and I reach behind my back and then tie the deep red canvas apron that forms the key piece of my uniform. I crouch down and I wrap it around her. At this light gesture of concern, she breaks and rushes forward to clean alarm at 7 o'clock, crying, silent tears that stream. My daughter, face the replace her with you. How can you possibly think you can save her, John? My sense of rationality screams at me as I hardly lead her down the corridor and back towards the stairs. What can you possibly do? There's no way you can get her out of your own saved. There is just no way. You have to look out for number 1. This will be your undoing. It's okay, I'm honored to the girl. It's okay, I'm going to get you out. You hear me? I'm going to get you out of here, but you have to do exactly as I say, okay? No response. I stopped halfway up the stairs and squat down and grabbing her tight of these shoulders and not looking into her eyes. Okay, she not as quickly. Tears is still flowing rivers. Alright, okay, we can do this, we can do this. and I take a deep breath as I grab a hold of you. Freezer door is heavy handle, the one that will return us into the back of the restaurant. It was a trap all along. This is it. This is the end unless it's just the cold. I think a lot. Is it frozen? I shoot the girl the glass and she doesn't reply as I pull it down, and it was like cracking a little burst of frost. The doors open, relieving. I like the freezer door tight behind us, and I think through my admittedly limited options as quickly as I can. There are two ways out of this place, the fire exit at the back and the main door is at the front. None of the windows will open wide enough to get her out on. The fire exit might be alarmed. To get to it you have to pass through the kitchen, my swallow main entrance. It is Miley, down to the girl. She looks back up at me and she fumbles with these straps of the apron, wrapped it tightly around herself. She's so small, and can I hide her in something? And I rack my brains. There are boxes in the storeroom that are used for cutting off trash. She probably fit. What's the door to the immense bathroom? Stay here, I whispered to the girl. She looks like she's about to panic. I'll be right back, and just give me a few seconds. I promise. She anxiously releases a grab it, and with one more glass. I stole this, and not too loudly as I can, across the corridor and push through the door to the bathroom. Quick look around confirms that it is empty, and I return it to the girl. I take her to stay on this side of me. Keep pace, don't make a sound, okay? She nods my Clarence once again around the corner. No one has noticed that no one is coming. Saliva flies from the cracked into your lips of the closest patron, and what? She isn't looking this way. She's sitting at an angle. Nice to do it myself. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Now she has to walk a little quicker to keep up, and I hear her ragged brass alongside me. To my ear is. They sound dangerously loud, and I reach out, for the bathroom door is ahead, and I pushed through. I breathe. I take her to the cubicle for this from the door, and I draw her inside. You need to stay here, okay? Hide up in here on the toilet to keep your feet up and stay totally silent. I will come back for you. Greater desperation now. They're going to hurt you. You know this, don't you? Unless I can get you out of here, they're going to hurt you a lot, so, please, please, stay here, stay silent, and I'll be back, I promise. The girl says nothing, but tentatively she releases her grab and holds herself up on top of the toilet. I'll be back. Lock the door, okay, don't open it for anyone but me. And with that I hear you back to the bathroom door. Pause. I see her feet below the store, I hear the lock like, and I see her feet disappear again. Before she has a chance to question me or refuse, she grimaces when I looked around, and the other two remained fixed on me. I don't think that we've ever made intentional physical contact before. Her skin around the arms is rough and it's not quite skilled, but still harder than it should be. Why are your hands so cold? Yes, humans are warm-blooded. It's stressful working here, for obvious reasons. Why are you giving me these, John? She asked you down in the freezer. The kitchen needs an arm. Why don't you go down? And I get down there before I don't know where anything is. She rolls all three of her eyes. Fine, take this to the kitchen for me. Then she pauses and, where's your apron? And I take the order stuff from a free hand, and my shift is over for the day. I'm on my way home, but, thanks, I turned in straight away before she can ask me any more questions, and I realized that my fist had been clenched against the side of my leg and stretched my fingers, encouraging the blood flow back through the restaurant. The attention I feel like a tangible, filled one I could shatter at any moment. Stay calm down, stay calm. When I push past the doors and into the uncomfortable warmth of the kitchen, motor up, I say about these is all the cookies and all these slip across the counter. It reaches out and snatches it with an angry mother freaking me back. I can't read a single word of this stuff. I'm already backing away or returning to the door is birds. I didn't even write that one. I don't know what it says. He stared at me incredulously, startling it. He bares his roll of a gray-green teeth and spits under the counter. And you want, boy, what are you doing? Swapping orders for you, trying to make my life as difficult as possible, you dumb sack of flesh. Some of the other chefs have glanced over. They paused their jobs and knives and other such fearsome apparatus in their hands. The general bustle of the kitchen slows so much my swallow an unpleasant experience with my death dry throat. My step back up to the counter. Look, just hand it over to me and let me see. Big mistake. He barks, shoving it out crumpled and sweats. They know it's back into my hand, do the guys? It is actually rather difficult to read. It's all they want. They want to stay and medium rare side me and I get the heck out. I'm just hoping and praying that I don't bump into my movements will be far harder to explain to her, and I can't leave the girl in the bathroom. She needs me and I head right across the restaurant, abandoning the more direct me to the store later. Someone calls later, Mike Northern. For all they know, I have other duties to attend to. Renaissance I do in the stockroom. I grab myself a new apron and hastily slip it over my neck and fasten it around my waist. I root through the piles of cardboard and pick up a large cardboard box still in one piece, and one that I'm hoping will be strong enough to hold the weight of the girl inside of collapsing it. It was a smart enough plan in my head, but now that I'm looking at it, can I really carry the girl in this box? What if she's just too heavy and breaks out through the bottom? I run my hands through my hair and look around the storeroom. There's nothing else in here that will be any use to me. I don't have much of a choice. The box it is. I grab the thing and empty it to the papers, but I can avoid it going to the main restaurant now and instead head through the accompanied side corridor and my return to the bathroom, and I pass by the series of disturbing pictures to which I become accustomed to over my many long months and employment. A framed portrait of a disgusting monster, humanoid than most. It could well be an old relative of Helios. His eyes appear to follow my movements, and oil canvas painting play the pics, say barren field beneath your blood rat of an evening sky, a pile of corpses. It's rotting in the background, ever so slightly out of immediate focus. A blown up a black and white photograph of a similar restaurant's opening. At least I have assumed it to be a different restaurant. It must be. The building is exactly the same, but I don't recognize the surrounding location. But, honestly, there aren't actually a great deal. The freezer was larger than I had expected it to be, admittedly, but it has the luxury of having an entire Florida itself. If I mean to anyone coming the opposite way down one of these corridors, then I'll have to hold the box above my head to allow them to pass, something that I will be able to do even if I have the girl inside. I use playfoot to post thrown to the men's bathroom. I come to a stop and suck some air through my teeth. As I do so, all three stalls are occupied. A man with cracked horns and bulging and shadowed sacks beneath his eyes and raps irritably on the door of the farthest, the one that hides the girl. Hello, is anyone in there? So I stammer, trying to keep my voice as level as I can. That one's out of order. I'm afraid you might just have to wait for one of the others to open up. He asked me, sucking a long strand of saliva back into his mouth of the doors inside. There is an uncomfortable silence as we both stand and still in the bathroom, not that far apart, waiting, and then the toilet flushes and another of the cannibal, the man with the horns that take his place, shutting the door behind him, as it's a former occupant, washes up and pushes it, past it out into the restaurant, not before a quick stuff of my immediate R. As he passes me by, however, my shivering, disgusting, quietly step to the farthest stall, and I know that I put my head beneath the door of a little girl, huddled and shaking and white with terror. "Let me in," tentatively, stepping onto the ground and reaching for the lock as I pulled back, pushing through the door and quickly shutting the clothes together behind me. "You're going to have to get into the box," I whisper, setting it on the ground. There's not a great deal of space in here, so I shuffle to the side, back, pressed up against the cubicle's wall. She stares at it and then back at me, and I see for a moment the play authorized. Yes, I know it's kind of stupid. This goes against every instinct I have, well, not quite every instinct my sense of humanity shawns, but the other is the ones that have thus far can be alive or resentful and angry. "I know," I whisper. "Please, I need you to get out of here before they realize you're missing, so please just get in." She stares. I can see the gears are turning around. Her eyes are red and raw, but she just stopped crying and she climbers and carefully into the box. "Stay quiet and don't move. I'll get you out." I close the lid and I stretch my back. I turned behind me and I locked the door in preparation. Then, when I think the bathroom is clear, I squat down and grab the box, open it up where it says, sliding both my hands beneath Christ. The girl, of course, isn't a very heavy, but the size and shape of the box means that a disproportionate amount of weight is being supported by my forearms. I grunt with a strain as I rise to a stand, adjusting the positions of my arms as best I can. I use my feet to open the door and straight back to the bathroom, pushing into the corridor and returning the way that I came through the hallway in the back. No risk, to be sure, if I bump into a little closer to the entrance definitely, but still a fair distance. It is the man from before with these scorpion fangs, the fly-like glitter ball eyes and the forearms, the one that I had saved from choking. He waves at me using one of his hands to wipe people from his mouth like any residue down under the tablecloth and over his empty plate. A part of me just wants to run to make a break for it. It's not like anyone would stop me enough, and regardless my behavior would be noticed, and noted it, and I'm on thin ice as it is. But irregular behavior plus and missing girl equals guilty, and I don't know what would happen to me if I'm not judge. Decide, you came over, I guess that's the guy that saved me here, and get this matter raise. The patron calls, looking over his shoulder as he moves past his fellow customers and ambles towards me. I follow. I will. It's occupants. Please, please. I don't draw any attention. This was the way that I was telling you about the man turtles to Healy as he approaches our position. He deserves a reward or something, and it is all I'm saying. Yes, Healy replies, her chance wobbling. Quite all right, sir, quite right. Why, was actually witness to the incident myself. She's just under 2 meters away now, making her way, set the table towards us. What are you still doing here, John? I thought you would have made your way home by now. The applause dies down and the customer has turned back to the tables. The thick, sticky stench of the atmosphere weighs heavily down upon us all. The conversation and the emotion and grinding of meals continues across the restaurant floor. But still she approaches. I can't speak. I can't think, there is no moisture in my... She comes to a stop by the box. The Scorpio man has written something out of nose and stuffed in my front pocket with a heavy pat on the back, a contact number, perhaps a tip, or his name. I have no idea, I don't really care. I don't listen as he shares something. Final words with Julia. I don't watch him as he departs. I stare instead of my boss as she regards Beatbox with curiosity. What have you got there, John? Yes, last time before I was just trash. I was just finishing up. I thought I would take the trash with me on my way out. I swallow and tell you about the cardboard letter, Knox, to reveal nothing. The box is empty. One of these sites has become my parsley, disconnected from the hole, and a strip of the deep red carpet is visible from the inside. My eyes are to the tablecloth beside it. It reaches down almost to the floor and it rustles. I step to the side of once drying Helios away. Does Justin have the box? Yes, looking up at me, it's just taking up space in the store. I thought I would get rid of it. No, we can use this to take it back and then, seriously, and get yourself home. Okay, you've earned it. My forced to have smile. Right, and do you have that, Lim? I asked for, by the way, any keys to the freezer, and she knows the layout better than me, or everything is in such so she already go down and started thought that she might as well. She said she would take it as straight to the kitchen. There is a tense pause. One of our patrons laugh at something on the opposite side of the restaurant. The sun is low and what he is rugs. All right, she pointed the box as she turns to take her leave and I nod a response. Kick. I need an excuse to stay. I take one of the empty trays from the nearest shelf and returning to the restaurant and I really need a glass of water or something. I'm starting to feel lightheaded as hell. The couple of the table that hides the girl are, thankfully, and nearly, finished, my head over, hanging back until the second that the woman is pushed the final chunk of red, brown meat into her mouth. Are you finished up? I asked a silly, clearing away the items on the table before I can get a response. Yes, was the man rubbing his belly. The colors of his suit fade steadily in and out across to semi-skilled skin. Delightful feast, he hungry. He drinks me and, as he speaks, anything else I can get for you? I ask as required, silently praying for a no, and I slow down, significantly, pausing and waiting, hovering by the table to see if he disgusting creatures are going to get up and leave. But instead they decide to enter into a conversation, table items into empty place, in hand, and Tory, and suspiciously as I am, I have no real choice but to return the items to the kitchen. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing now. Maybe I could hide, perhaps they insist that I want to stay healthy. Girl, get away when the restaurant is less busy. She's so close to the exit. For now, though, if the cannibals currently sitting at her table would kind of get out, that would be a good start. I pushed through into a large chunk of unidentifiable meat rotates slowly over the grill, sizzling and dripping heavy, globules of grease as it turns and there stands. I get her on the waitress holding a plastic shrink wrap to arm, arguing with the birth of chef. What the heck is this? We need a leg, not a bloody arm, you idiot. He doesn't over the counter and into her face crap. What did I ask again to retrieve it from the freezer? And did I ask you to get a leg or an arm? Crap, I definitely asked her to get an arm. Is a joke in there somewhere? My mind races this whole operation right up, haven't you? What are you going to do now? I stand there in the doorway like I'm on the two engaged in the arguments, turn off his apron and straighten around the corner, snatching the keys in the plastic wrap, severed arm from a Garrett's hand as he does. So I step quickly to the side and avoid his gaze as he shoves past me, muttering angrily under his breath. I put the tree on the side ready to be sorted and cleaned. And again it makes eye contact with me. She throws at her arms and exasperation. What the heck, John? She says. She shimmers something into his ear, and that's all too familiar. Fear makes a swift and unwelcome return to my God. Oh God, did she see you? Did she notice the missing girl already? Did you even remember to relock the room that you found her in, John? I'm not so sure if I did. There's a long and Australian pause. The sounds of clattering pots and pans reverberate through the pillars of steam all around. The chef straightens John. He calls from across the kitchen. Another pause. Yes, reply, along with the order, slab, table 20, the Grammy that says table 20, John and grumpy girls and I not carrying it out into the restaurant without another word, table 20. It is, as you probably noticed, this isn't the way that I do things. I do what I'm told as a new, truly, and as a dispassionately but not disrespectful as possible, staying boring, and keep it under the radar. It's worked fantastically so far, and today, well, today might as well have screwed all that up. Save the girl. You have to save the girl. You told her to put under the table and she trusts you. I try not to think about what my shift is going to be like tomorrow, if I even make it to tomorrow, that is. I can't bear it. What's the best case scenario for your vagina? The girl gets away, you get home safely and want to. No one notices she's even missing. It's never mentioned. My way through the restaurant to table 20, it doesn't take long. It's right at the back of the room, by the same wall that holds the kitchen door is. I do my best to hold off the wave of impending panic. Of course they'll notice she's missing. It will absolutely notice. It looks like they already have noticed, but no one knows. You were down there and look at the blame. She's the one that went down, and Grammy suspects, though it doesn't need John. You saw it in his eyes and he's got his suspicions already here. The about time you expect faster service in a place like this. The closest grumbles, saliva dripping from the corners of your mouth and underwear chest. Her companion starts and edges for it in their seat, one bulging. I have fixes on me, the other swings a while. Be around and down to the meal before, and 2 portions of cut shoulder, one with hot springs, and I hope you enjoy it up. But the creature to my immediate left and grabs a hold of my alarm. Not just a caress or a cell, a group, but a grab. I freeze and stare at her. Immediately times to waiter boy, this is not what we ordered it. Now here is series a little squelches as all their eyes turn from their meals and fix themselves out of me. Her job quiver is the other patron has snarls with frustration, and I'm sure you know we paid a great guarantee our place here tonight, and I am so far been less than impressed with the quality of service. Of course, madam, my apologies. If you could just let go of my arm. She digs your fingers and tighter. I would like to speak with the owner, please. I'm afraid that that's just not possible. It's rather busy tonight, but I can go and speak with the kitchen, moaning as she rubs a scaled head across her belly. I'm not sure I could just be a simple mix of it. If you could just let go of my arm and I can speak with the kitchen and bring him out here. As I said, it's a busy one tonight, but I can definitely go and ask him. Bring the chef to me now myself, gathering my courage. I stare right into your face, expression called release, my alarm. There is a strain, pause, but my relief. She does as I say and reluctantly releases her grab, leaving a pale and painful mark in my skin. I'll do what I can. I tell her, picking me plates back up and shaking hands and returning to the kitchen. The universe is against me tonight. If she's fast, she should be able to make it out of the front door in time. Maybe I can help her move from table to get a little closer and prove her chances. It's not a great plan, admittedly, but I'm running out of options. I just want her out of the restaurant. I can't breathe here. My thought process is broken by the sight of birds are back in the kitchen. He's holding the leg, as requested, and muttering here, and I can't hear what he's saying from here over the climber, but his gestures are wild. He runs a hand over his bulb is at it and the creature looks. Bad idea. Honestly, I have to stop myself from releasing a bitterness. The plan, I feel, cannot be going much worse. Robert has already noticed the missing girl as well, then I really have no choice. I have to get her out. If you're not before and they conduct a search engine you probably wouldn't know. He says to my surprise, "It's fine, I'll go talk to them." Bert starts sputtering but Gummy simply puts down his knife and points the shot back to the cookies and keep things run for me, but I'll be back in. The creature seems irritated to have had his concerns put on hold but also rather, please do granted this temporary authority. He mutters to himself but returns to work, grunting orders to the other shows. I wonder if you can feel the layers of sweat that I permeated through the material. Get back to work for now, John, I'll handle this station. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Is that a threat response? And allow myself to the right, to the problem table and I turn left is shivering, increasing to give the impression of folds in the fabric, and the female pulls on a pair of gloves and her gnarled four-fingered hands are hidden from you. They push on out through the doors and then the new doors behind and into the evening. Cold, and a little gust of cool wind is blowing into the restaurant as they do so, just another couple out to dinner. I think to myself, and the moment passes and I reach for the tip that they have left in the center of the table, and accidentally fumble, the coincidence dropping them to the floor. I quickly glance around and then crouch to the ground to pick them back up. My turn to the tablecloth. As I do so, they've gone, I whisper, and we're going to get you out of here. Okay, I lift up the corner of the tablecloth and see the girl huddled up between the chairs staring back at me, a wide-eyed and shivering on my signal. You run, okay, and I lift the tablecloth a little higher, do the entrance. She nods on my signal. You make a break for it, run for the doors as fast as you can and don't stop and get as far from here as you can. You understand, she knows again. Okay, alright. I lower the tablecloth again and stand up straight, taking a step back, heart pounding like crazy and everything seems to slow right down and I take in all the general murmur and shortly and I'll be cannibals all around, the deep red decor of the restaurant walls in Florida, the champions of Jaws and the splattering of meats across the tablecloth, and I take a note of the basil through the steamy windows to the kitchen at the far end of the room, and I realize that this is it. One way or another. I have acted against my programming and I am now, for better or for worse, going to have to deal with the consequences. Here we go, staring right at me, the silence falls and I stare at the shop and, surprised, I don't know how to react to. I don't know what's happening. My wife had it, I've had it with you. You bloody me back. Moments in the corner of my eye drops my attention, hideous drive from one of the adjoining corridors and out into the restaurant. I'm lost for words. What is he doing? What is he talking about? Don't you see what? I don't care what. Behind and Allison away into the night, and then she's gone. The girl has escaped and I breathe, but I'm not the only one who saw her go. My eyes make Grammys. His face passes through a quick and passionate cycle of emotions, confusion, a surprise, indignation, anger, and then better amusement, perhaps, maybe even a little girl. And you've served as well, from my perspective at least, as understood by the terms of our contract. I have been hoping that you would continue to work for us for a further few years, but she shoots a look over to Grammy and, but I can't lose my head, chef. I just can't. So unless you would care to change your mind from here. The customers look for me, to Helia. To me the tension hangs like a great weight to the air, please mate. Saliva bubbles at the edges of their mouth as their lips feel bad to reveal the rolls of a gray, green, blood, stained teeth behind, and I push out into the cold weather and skin. But they also shared a myriad of a strike in the human qualities, and not just a physical ones either. I haven't written off the possibility that they were humans once, or something like that long ago. Perhaps it's food for thought. If you'll pardon the pun, I saw the girl again shortly after my final shaft. She was happy to see me. Her name is Erin, by the way, that I roughly cooperated. The story navigate to her parents, into the police. The white dress, the creatures up as people, smugglers, rather than a flashy monster is. The place was raided within the day, but there was nothing there, just an empty and run-down old building in Rhode Island. Had the restaurant always looked like that? To the untrained eye? Was I simply unable to see it for what it really was? None of my contract had expired or had the restaurant moved on to somewhere else. I for the rest of my life that I do not know where they acquire the humans for their fees. I'd assume that they had a farm of sorts and some hidden location. Maybe the girl's is with return to her family in the city. However, through some doubts over that theory, I wonder why me chose to allow me to leave, why he chose to stay silent when he saw the girl escaped. I'm thankful for his decision, and don't get me wrong, but it troubles me that I am no longer able to consider these creatures I interacted with as simply monsters and black and white. They were monsters, of course, and yet I shake my head. I was around them for far too long. Far too long and needed. I picked up the empty dawn of the day. There's work to be done. I need to find myself a new job after all.